And now, in studio, bringing his Midwest values from the Show Me State to the land of San Diego. He's a triple threat, licensed as an attorney, mortgage broker, and a top producing realtor who's crushing the competition. Here to deliver you what's happening in the trenches of the market. Your host, Michael Gaddis.
Welcome back to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis of michaelgaddis.com and frontierloangroup.com. I am here today with my special guest, Brenda Geiger of geigerlawoffice.com, and we're going to start talking about elder law. I know a lot of people, when they think about elder law, they're probably driving right now going, well, I'm not an elder, I don't need to listen to this. But based upon my experience or my, knowledge of elder law is not just for elderly people, because everybody knows, has people in their family that are beginning to age. Elder law has to do with a decision that, decisions that are important to the whole family as a whole. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
And I think that what happens is that people start thinking, well, they tune out when they hear elder law because they think, well, I'm not an elder yet, I don't need to worry about this. But this goes back to my little, metaphor or analogy of the train. You can't wait until then. You got to really start planning. And one of the things I want to talk about specifically is Medi-Cal planning.
Yes.
So, Brenda, what is Medi-Cal and why is planning so important?
Medi-Cal is a needs-based program. It's part of the Medicaid system. We just happen to call it Medi-Cal here in California. So it's a federal program that has a state and federal funding component to it. So each state has its own laws. So if you have a parent that lives in another state, they may have slightly different rules and regulations on, who can get it and when. But when we're talking about Medi-Cal planning in the elder law space, we're talking about Medi-Cal for nursing home care. It does cover some other things too. There are some waiver programs, but basically, in order to qualify for this benefit, which would pay for all or a portion of a skilled nursing home facility stay past your Medicare 100 days, which they don't pay 100% of anyways. But if you go beyond that, or you have a parent that goes beyond that, they cannot own more than $2,000 in order to qualify. Now, I'm oversimplifying. There are some rules that are a little bit different when you're married. The spouse that's not ill can have more assets, but the house could be subject to a Medi-Cal recovery action after the person dies to pay back the Medi-Cal system, and that doesn't have to be the default. You can plan ahead so that you have more options, and we do that through some various creative ways.
Now that brings up an interesting point, which again goes back to my initial story. When my father's girlfriend of 14 years, living girlfriend of 14 years, got cancer, she became on Medi-Cal. And now she was not on any of his bank accounts. She was not on the house. Everything was in his name, but she was living with him. And after she passed away, Medi-Cal sent a letter, basically assuming that she had some assets because she lived in my father's house. So there's a little interaction between Medi-Cal and my father's estate because of his girlfriend of 14 years had passed away. So again, it comes down to planning. So let me ask you a question: what type of planning can you do for Medi-Cal?
When we're looking at a pre-planning, if you have a home and maybe a little bit in other assets, you can set up an irrevocable trust and gift that house to that trust and continue to live in the home rent-free. And you can still report it on your tax return to get any of the deductions that you've been getting prior to that. So by doing that, when you pass, it's not in your estate, so it's not subject to Medi-Cal coming in and recovering against the home. It can also provide some help in the sense that if everything's going okay now, but there is some concern. What if I fell or my loved one fell, broke a hip, ended up in the hospital, had a heart attack, a stroke, dementia set in, and they got to the point where they couldn't take care of themselves anymore and needed to move into a skilled nursing facility. We can sell the house inside the trust, that irrevocable trust, and then now we have an asset or a trust that's got other assets that may be there to help augment the lifestyle. Not directly, you can never make a distribution directly out to that person that set up the trust initially, but the people that are listed as the lifetime beneficiaries of that trust can take money out. They can do whatever they want with it. It's just that they're taking it out as a distribution to themselves. If they choose to give that back and, supplement the lifestyle of their parent or other loved one, they can do that, but it's not a requirement.
Now, one of the things that, as I mentioned, I help a lot of people with reverse mortgages. So one of the things that I run across a lot is the question is, how can a reverse mortgage affect Medi-Cal benefits? Now, I've been told that basically if a person gets a reverse mortgage and takes a line of credit and only takes, pays things out of the line of credit, that should not necessarily affect Medi-Cal benefits. Is that true?
Well, the house is an exempt asset, so you're looking at an income analysis, I would guess. So, depending on the way that you're reported on, if you're already on Medi-Cal, they do a reassessment once a year to requalify you. So if you're getting some kind of waiver program, because I'm assuming you're talking about somebody who's still living in their home.
That's right.
Yeah, so if they're getting some kind of waiver program, they may or may not have to report that income in. I haven't had that situation happen yet in my practice, but I guess it would be a depends.
Yeah, I think one of the things they mentioned was they should not take a lump sum and put a bunch of money into their bank account from their reverse
don't
mortgage.
accumulate assets. Yeah, don't take that money and accumulate assets. But if you're going to be using it for your living expenses, then that's a different situation.
Yeah, and that's what I was told. So elder law, what does elder law encompass besides Medi-Cal planning? What else would you what would you say, how would you define elder law?
I would say that it encompasses the other aspects of estate planning, making sure you have a strong power of attorney that allows you to do a lot of things because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Having your healthcare directive on board so somebody can make decisions for you. If you're not able to do that, the HIPAA authorization for release of medical information. So if your loved one gets rushed to the hospital, that you're able to communicate with the doctor and that they'll actually talk to you and give you the status. It also can include VA planning. So we're talking about needs-based aid and attendance VA planning, which is completely different than a VA disability planning, meaning that you have to have very little assets and very little income in order to qualify. So it's much harder to qualify for VA and than it is for Medicaid or Medi-Cal, but it's still a possibility. It sometimes is. It makes sense, especially if somebody wants to stay in the home, but they need some additional care. Caregivers to come in, they're just not able to meet the difference between what they have in income and that. But we're looking at wartime veterans and spouses of veterans, honorable discharge. So there